Hello, hi, I am Dr. Huda again. All right, this video is on refugees issues. So at the end of the lecture, students must be able to explain the definition of refugees under international law, distinguish the definition of refugees with asylum seekers, internally displaced person, and stateless person. Thirdly, describe the legal protection of refugees in international instruments, and identify the issue or problems of refugees in the world together with solutions. So basically, this lecture is divided into five divisions. First, the definitions of these people. Secondly, the Refugees Convention of 1951, rights of refugees, issues and problems of refugees, and solutions. So, some of the facts about refugees in the world, a number shows that there are about 84 million forcibly displaced people worldwide, right? And then other numbers shows that there are a lot of refugees around the world. And Turkey is one of the countries that become a host for these refugees, all right? And they have protected or giving protection to these about 3,696,831 refugees in Turkey alone. And in other countries, there are also that become hosts for these refugees. You can see an example of videos on Syrian refugees, a crisis that happens that we all know the crisis that happened in Syria. They can watch on YouTube. Right, in Malaysia alone, we have like 181,510 refugees and asylum seekers registered with the UNHCR in Malaysia. Right, you can watch a video of sharing session between the refugees and also the moderator with regards to refugees in Malaysia. All right. If you want to know more about that, you can watch this the YouTube. All right. So, who are refugees? Okay, who are refugees? You can see this definition is Article 1, Clause 1, Paragraph 2 of the UN Convention relating to the status of refugees in 1951. Okay, from the definition, we can extract that a person who has a well-founded fear of persecution, for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, and political opinion, is outside the country of nationality and is unable or unwilling to avail of the protection of their own state for reasons of such persecutions. And you can watch another video on YouTube with regards to definition of refugee. Okay, please take a look at the video. Right. So next, besides refugee, who are asylum seeker? All right, a person who is seeking to be recognized as a refugee is an asylum seeker. All right, meaning that an asylum seeker is someone who says they are a refugee but whose claim has not yet been definitively evaluated. Okay, according to the International Refugees Law, a refugee is someone who seeks refuge in a foreign country because of war and violence or out of fear of prosecution. So, until a request for refuge has been accepted, the person is referred to as an asylum seeker. Only after recognizing the asylum seeker's protection needs, they are officially referred to as a refugee and enjoys refugee status, which carries certain rights and obligations according to the receiving country's legislation. So the difference between asylees and refugees is largely procedural. A person who requests asylum is called an asylee. A person who requests protection while still overseas and then is given permission to enter a country as a refugee is naturally called a refugee. So why people seek asylum? Because they no longer feel safe and might have been targeted just because of some reasons, for example, because of their ethnicity, religion, sexuality, or political opinions. Right. Okay. Next, who are internally displaced person? So IDPs are persons or groups of persons who have been forced or obliged to flee or to leave their homes or places of habitual residence as a result of to avoid the effect of armed conflict, situations of generalized violence, violations of human rights, or natural or human-made disasters, and who have not crossed an internationally recognized border. So this is provided by the definition is provided by the United Nations Report Guiding Principles on Internal Displacement. You can read that. And there are more than 2 million people estimated to be internally displaced in Ukraine. Not only in Ukraine, it happens around the world. Okay, you can watch also a video with regards to the explanation of internally displaced persons. So to know more, you can watch the video on YouTube. Right. Next, who are stateless person? How is it different from these refugees, asylum seekers, internally displaced persons? All right. So, stateless person is a person who is not considered as a national by any state under the operation of its laws. So, you can read Article 1, Clause 1 of the 1954 Convention relating to the status of stateless persons. Well, this definition is binding on all stateless parties to the convention and applies to other states because the International Law Commission has concluded that it is part of international customary law. And statelessness can occur for several reasons, including discrimination against particular ethnic or religious groups or based on gender, the emergence of new states and transfers of territory between existing states, and gaps in nationality laws. So I hope by this time you are already know how to differentiate between an internally displaced person, a refugee, and a stateless person. So who are they? Okay, please explain to yourself. Right, next we are moving on to the causes of refugee, all right, situations. First, you can see that the first would be a war and civil war prosecutions. Right, there are war out there and civil war out there. For example, in Ukraine, Syria, even in Egypt, a long time ago, not long time ago. And we have these human rights violations. Yeah, for example, because of massive corruption and greed by political positions, these leaders forced these people are forced to leave their homes. Yeah. Thirdly, environment and climate change. All right, is also a cause for refugee situation as well as economic hardship. Okay, economic hardship. Okay. Okay, with regards to the 1951 Convention relating to the status of refugees, all right? So you need to understand these international laws, all right, in order for you to understand the laws pertaining to refugees, right? So basically, this convention was limited to protecting mainly European refugees in the aftermath of World War II. But another document, the 1967 Protocol, expanded the scope of the convention as the problem of displacement spread around the world. So you can read there the characteristics or the features of the convention and the effects of the conventions. For example, as of 20 January 2020, there were about 146 parties to the convention and 147 to the protocol already, right? The convention clearly spells out who a refugee is and the kind of legal protection under the assistance and social rights he or she should receive from the countries who have signed the documents. Right, it also defines a refugee's obligations to host governments and certain countries or people, such as war criminals who do not qualify for refugee status. And this convention was adopted by the UN and main international instruments of refugee law. So, other international law instruments relating to refugees includes the Optional Protocol of 1967, the UDHR, Article 14, and then we have these Convention Against Torture, Other Cruel, Inhuman, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment, Article 3, and Convention on the Rights of the Child, in Article 22. And the UNHCR is the UN Refugee Agency that provides protection and assistance to the refugees. It leads the coordinate international action to protect refugees and resolve refugee problems, safeguard the rights and well-being of refugees, provides legal framework and organization of refugees. You can see there a picture of a card of refugees issued by the UNHCR. Okay. So with regards to UNHCR, a little bit on the history, all right, it was established by the Resolution 319, capital A, number 4 of on the 3rd December 1949, where the UN General Assembly decided to establish Office of the UNHCR as the UN agency. Okay, so that's about the UNHCR. Okay, basically, seeking asylum is a human right. So this is what is promoted by the UNHCR. So seeking asylum is a human right. So it is a right of these people to find a place which they think is safe for them. Okay. So the rights of refugees includes in the conventions, yeah, includes the non-discrimination, freedom of religion, personal status, rights of association, access to courts, wage earning employment, self-employment, housing, public education, freedom of movement, travel documents. Right? Country ratified this convention includes Canada, China, Korea, Turkey, and etc. Okay, so many universally recognized human rights are directly applicable to refugees. Yeah, besides the Refugee Convention just now, all right, there are other international instruments that are applicable to refugees, such as we have the Article 9 of the UDHR with regards to arbitrary arrest, detention, exile, and we have like Convention against torture. We have about on the non-refoulement, all right, of the refugee, all right, and then number 4 we have like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 13, with regards to rights to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state. Okay, and with regards to non-refoulement mentioned just now, all right, it is a practice of not forcing refugees or asylum seekers to return to a country in which they are liable to be subjected to prosecutions. All right, so as this principle of non-refoulement is generally accepted as a principle of customary international law, this principle is binding on all nations, regardless whether the state is a party or not to the 1951 Convention. This means that Malaysia, although not a party to the Refugee Convention, is nevertheless bound by this important principle of international law. Okay, next we move on to the issues and problems arising from the refugees. Firstly, ill treatment of asylum seekers. For example, of ill treatment includes physical assaults, the detention of asylum seekers for extended periods without legitimate reasons, and harsh interrogation procedure. Right? Boats of asylum seekers have even been pushed back to sea to die or of hunger or make an easy target for pirates and sharks when they have attempted to land on certain shores. Secondly, denial of rights. Okay, for example, the refugees deserve basic needs, for example, food, shelter, healthcare, employment, and education. In some instances, refugees are confined to camps and refuse access to courts and legal aid. Moreover, refugees may find themselves unable to obtain employment, own businesses, or purchase land. And thirdly, violations of the rights to life, liberty, and security. In some places, refugees are regularly subjected to attacks and abuse. Many have died in military or armed attacks on refugee camps and settlements. Attacks on refugee camps have been condemned by the UN General Assembly in numerous resolutions. For example, attacks on Palestinian refugees in Lebanese camps and attacks on the Thai-Cambodian border. So these are examples of issues surrounding refugees. That you can see Jamal there from Somalia. You can see Nigerian refugees in Siam Forage, a picture down there. All right, in Difa region, southeast Niger. All right, and you can see there the refugees camping in ill-adapted shelters. All right, and then pictures down there. All migrants living in Belgrade have successfully attempted to cross border into Hungary or Croatia. Many have suffered physical abuse from police while trying. All right, now, and then we also have issues on xenophobic or racist aggressions. All right, racist aggressions. All right, and then we have social problems to host countries. It becomes a burden for host countries. It put pressure on public budget service provisions. So these are the solutions that how the UN seek to redress with regards to the issues of refugees. Firstly, by voluntary repatriations. All right. So voluntary repatriation is a solution for refugees who have decided to return home. The UNHCR strive to facilitate their choice through go and see visits, education, legal aid, and family reunification. For example, the UNHCR have hundreds of thousands of people to return home to countries like Angola and Somalia. Second solutions that the UN seek to redress, that UN used to seek redress, yeah, by local integration. It is a complex process which places considerable demands on both the individual and the receiving society. However, it also has benefits, allowing refugees to contribute socially and economically. Over the past decade, 1.1 million refugees worldwide have become citizens in their country of asylum. And thirdly, all right, third solutions by the UN is that resettlement. All right, resettlement involves the transfer of refugees from an asylum country to another state that has agreed to admit and ultimately grant them permanent settlement. To aid this process, the UNHCR provide cultural orientation, language and vocational training, as well as access to education and employment. In Malaysia, resettlement has been the most used. Like since 2005 to date, nearly like 118,000 refugees from 50 countries were submitted for resettlement, consideration to as many as 15 resettlement countries. This is an example of resettlement of a Syrian family. All right, I'm gonna read their stories. After fleeing to Lebanon to escape the conflict in Syria, Hanan and Ali could not afford to send their young daughters to school and were unable to access the healthcare Ali needed after losing a leg in an explosion back in Syria. Resettlement to Sweden 4 years ago provided the family with a much-needed lifeline. Their three daughters are now enrolled in school and speaking Swedish. Ali has found a job and Hanan is working as an assistant nurse while continuing her studies in biomedicine. So, well, the word refugee is used in so many ways, all right, despite of, refugees are part of humanity and we can't leave them behind. So you can use, they also use these words somewhere else or in the different contexts as well. Like, for example, you can see the statement, yeah, made your enemy is not a refugee, your enemy is the one who made him a refugee. Okay. So this is the summary of the lecture. All right, you can read there, you can snap, and you can put it on your wall and read. So thank you very much. I'll see you in our next video. Bye.